I started this video with an assumption on what a good U.S. organization to manage climate change efforts might look like. To make sure the result was a system like the F 15 and not the F 111, given my Air Force background. And I can say I have a really great idea for how to do that, but it's not at all what I started with. Spoiler, it involves an Air Force guy recommending an Army organization. But I did promise when doing these things to keep my personal feelings out of it. It sure is hard, though. So, previously, I have been critical of the uncoordinated efforts for greenhouse gas management, trying to do too many things at once and reminding me of the F 111 fighter I worked on when I was a young lieutenant back in the 1980s. For those not familiar with it, the idea of building a common fighter between the Air Force and Navy that could handle a wide variety of missions. It's been done more recently with the F 35. Using the latest ideas for a swing wing and terrain following radar, to name just a few of its featured technologies. In practice, the Navy dropped the plane entirely, and the Air Force used it only as a bomber, not a fighter. When I was working on the F 111 program, and that was well into its history, it had been around for like 15 years then, the program was all about reliability. When it worked, it was an amazing plane, but it broke all the time. By the time the program office was done with it in the 1990s, it was a really good aircraft. The program fixed most of its problems over the years. But that was 20 years late in coming, and when the Cold War ended, so did the F 111. My thought was that the Department of Energy needed to go through a reorganization that allowed for some strategic planning and made sure it was realistic so that they did not end up with the F 111 of climate change efforts. They are, after all, the Department of Energy, so they should manage things, right? Well, no, I've changed my mind. What the Department of Energy is doing will not get us off the ground. Following the money is a good place to start. The DOE has a decent sized budget at first glance, but dig a little deeper, and the greenhouse gas part turns out to be a relatively small piece. Roughly half goes to nuclear fission. For the other half, the majority goes to research and environmental management, leaving only a few billion or 20% of their budget for other tasks. When a nuclear power plant costs a couple $1 billion each, it's the proverbial drop in the bucket. By way of comparison, my original thought was to highlight the difference between the Air Force and Space Force, illustrate how DOE's, Department of Energy's, budget profile is similar to that of Space Force, which is R&D centric, versus the Air Force, which is always maintaining a large fleet of aircraft. All of that is true. And when I read through the budget request, it became clear that even that was a flawed analogy. Pursuing and executing R&D programs and pilot demonstrations for technologies that improve grid reliability, resilience, efficiency, flexibility, and functionality. That's wording right out of their budget document. A little further on, conducting research on electricity markets, distribution planning processes, particularly at the state and community levels, that increase reliability, social equity, and efficiency related to the electric delivery system. That's all well and good, but it's indicative of the language the Air Force uses when it's talking about small business set asides, and not an organization in any way prepared to manage a big dollar effort requiring coordination across federal and state governments, utilities, and making hard choices on what goes forward and what is cut. Reforming and scaling an organization like this one would take far too long and involve a great deal of growing pain. I will add that digging into the current state of the electrical grid, I concluded that the DOE lacks the basic program management skills for even their current efforts. The following is a quote from recent testimony by James Robb, President and Chief Executive Officer of the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, that he gave to Congress in June. And I quote, within the limits of Section 215, da 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 da.
Within the limits of Section 215 of the Federal Power Act, NERC acts as a reliability regulator for the BPS. NERC has authority over transmission and generation facilities needed to maintain transmission system reliability. However, NERC may not order the enlargement of these facilities, nor may NERC require construction of new transmission or generation capacity. Furthermore, local distribution of electricity and fuel supply are excluded from NERC jurisdiction and fall under state oversight. While the current reliability regime significantly strengthens reliability of North America's transmission system, transformation of the generation resource mix and the expansion of DERs have injected new jurisdictional complexities. Adding to these challenges is the need for industry, regulators, and policymakers to constantly balance reliability with customer affordability and environment impacts, priorities that are outside of NERC's jurisdiction. When viewed through the lens of balancing reliability, economics, and the environment, the challenges for the electricity sector become highly complex.
But all is not lost. There is an existing government organization that is well suited for the task. The Army Corps of Engineering, designers of many waterway projects, including dams and levees. It would be a significant increase in their responsibilities, but it would be a question of scaling up by 2x an organization that is already experienced in contracting and working with a wide variety of stakeholders. Frankly, I'm a little dismayed that they appear to have been largely left out to date. It's not clear to me why, but then again, they were not my first thought either, since while they are effective, they are not known for quick work. But slower, effective work is better than haphazard efforts every day of the week. And to continue with my F-111 analogy, you will be using an original defense contractor when you have a plane like the F-111 for a long time, and this is similar to oil companies. They're not going away tomorrow. Over time, companies are sometimes replaced, but it's not a quick process. I spent 20 years working with defense contractors. Most of the people I worked with on a day-to-day basis were just like you and me. The organizations those people were a part of were not a charity. I got that. In no way, shape, or form were they. Treating them as the enemy, I have seen done multiple times. And when treated as the enemy, they fight back, and usually they won. I realize that there are a lot of issues and that not all of this is going to happen today. Probably not until the problem becomes more painful, sadly. But I suspect in the next 10 years, events will cause our country to re-examine its approach that matter to both the red and the blue. So remember, you heard it here first. I have a lot more information on the electric grid, but it needs some work, and I actually am going to tie in a lot of misunderstanding about what the defense priority allocation system is. You hear about it in the media. I've done it for real, and what is said in the media is largely incorrect. So stay tuned. Please, if you like these, I really could use subscribers, comments, likes, and all that good stuff to help me with the YouTube algorithms. Thanks, and have a great day.